I'm really excited here to be hosting the first episode of Experts React. This video series, we'll be recording them every week. And what we do is we get an expert in to just debate a particular topic. In this case, this first episode is going to be about technical debt, something that everybody is concerned about. And the way we want to run these is, first of all, let's understand what the problem is. So what is technical debt and why is it an issue? Secondly, what's the cost associated with technical debt? How do we measure technical debt, the price that we're paying because we've got it? And then finally, let's have some actions that come out of it. How would I go about getting rid of that technical debt? Because the real purpose of this is to make it very actionable. And I'm delighted today that we've actually got Andrew Russo, who's the Salesforce architect at Backer Systems. You may know Andrew from his Dreamforce session, Just Say No. You may also have seen him on the How I Built It, which is a Salesforce series. And also he's been on the Trailblazer admin podcast. So I'm delighted to have him here with us today. So we're going to pick his brains about technical debt. So Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
It should be good fun. So first of all, can you try and describe what technical debt is? Everyone thinks of it as this thing we hate, we shouldn't have, or we should try and avoid it, but no one really understands what it is. So can you, in your terms, what's technical debt and what does it mean to your org?
I think the best way to describe technical debt, there's a lot of different things that make it up, but like when you want to think, is this technical debt? Think, is this a skeleton in the closet that you kind of ignore and you don't want to see and you want to think out of sight, out of mind? I didn't get error emails overnight from something that was not working. Like you just, those things that you know are fragile and going to break or going to come back and it's going to bite you in the future, but you just kind of ignore them, want to push off to the side and think about it. Those are like kind of if it fits that criteria, that's in my mind, the technical debt. The other thing is like, what does nobody trust that people want right away? Then like you do it and then nobody trusts it later. So it's those kind of things that really becomes technical debt. And it really hurts orgs in the long term because it gets created when orgs are young and don't have proper processes like what the org that I'm in. But then as an org matures and there's more and more technical debt, it starts to impede our ability to create new things in the org because there's so much stuff to have to work around and really untangle.
But not all technical debt is bad. I mean, there's technical debt that you inherit because maybe you had process builder workflows and now we're all moving to Flow and you haven't had a chance to migrate them. If they're not breaking stuff, do you count that as technical debt?
I think in a way, I would say it's technical debt, but it's not bad technical debt like an emergency. But I'd say it is ultimately technical debt if it's something that if you had all the time and resource in the world, you would go and redo it or improve it or fix it. If it would be in that bucket of it'd be nice to do, but it's not a priority, I'd say it could be technical debt. If it's something that it works and it's fine and you wouldn't really put the effort to redo it if you could, then it's not really technical debt. So process builders, I would say, is technical debt, regardless of how they got there, because there's very good ways to replace it. But things like a multi-select pick list, it's a problem long term. It's not scalable. It's bad user experience. It's not great at reporting, but it's not really technical debt if the users are happy with using it. I think it's kind of a distinction. It's case by case.
So technical debt, actually, rather like any debt, has different levels of interest. So if it's something that's going to break the org, we'll count that as credit card level of interest. And then if it's something you should fix and you know you need to fix it maybe the next time you touch it, that's only over a bank account type debt and the interest rate associated with that. And then the stuff that it's in there, it's not hurting anybody. You would fix it if you had the time, but you're never going to get around to it. That's like borrow money off your parents type debt, which there's no interest.
Or like a home loan. A home loan or something. Yeah. If you had a mortgage on your house, it's there. It's a pretty low interest rate. It's out there. If you had all the money in the world, you'd probably pay it off. But if you were smart about money, you would realize you could do a lot of other stuff with that money to get better bang for your buck. So you're going to let that be at a low interest rate and you're going to focus on more important things for your company.
Oh, that's a great distinction. I like that. And again, I think we said technical debt is not all because you cut corners or you got stuff wrong. It may be because, and Process Builder Workflows was the right answer, and now Flow has replaced it. So now that you've actually inherited technical debt because the platform's moved on.
Exactly. The other thing is like if you were, say that you started out in an org that only had Process Builder or workflow rules because you couldn't have Apex. So you were in an edition of Salesforce that didn't have the ability to have code there. So you were using a legacy Star 1 because that's all that you were given the ability to use. Then it's not technical debt in a really bad way. It's there, and now it's long-term stuff evolves. So you've got to always move with what the new technology is. But Salesforce is great at being backwards compatible. So you don't have to really worry about stuff breaking right away. If they're going to make a change that you need to worry about, you're going to get ample notice, like years to go and make that change before anything bad could happen.
So let's move on to what the cost of technical debt is, because that's the only way you can start to build a business case for getting rid of it.
Yeah, I think there is different buckets, and I think that it's important to look at because there's one risk that we had internally that I'm working to go through is these fields that were ad hoc things. Salespeople, they've got the spreadsheet and they're like, well, we can't do it in Salesforce. So then some executive says, oh, well, make a field for that. So then someone gets coerced into making that field. And then we have that. So now we have data that's not stored in Salesforce accurate. It shouldn't be there. We had one of ours was a purchasing this year on the account. It's a yes, no pick list. What happens January 1st? I don't know. That really shouldn't have ever went in the org. But what happens then is business leaders and different salespeople make decisions based off that. So now there's financial risk that comes from it because they're looking at it thinking, okay, well, we've got all these customers that are going to purchase this year a machine from us. And it's like, no, they're not. So now we have bad forecasts. So there's an actual tangible amount of business decisions that are made off of incorrect data, which is, I'd say, coming off of technical debt because it shouldn't have been built in Salesforce like that. There's other things that really stop us from developing new things, but make it take substantially longer to actually develop new features and functionality that we want to add. Because say that we build a flow that has an update or create records in a loop. Now the second we go to build some other unrelated automation that should be really easy, we end up hitting governor limits. And we're like, well, what we're building is just a single thing. And somehow that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And now we hit governor limits and the entire object is just like not able to actually do anything. So it's two different levels of you can't keep going forward because you're cleaning up the past. And you've got almost like having an anchor tied to your foot as you're trying to like go across the finish line and you're having to pull all the weight with you. The other is the business decisions that are made because of bad data.
Also, the other thing I hear a lot is, oh, we've run out of fields. So if I've run out of fields, I've either got to upgrade to the next tier in Salesforce, or I've got to try and get rid of some of those fields. The other one is managed packages, where people have installed managed packages as a trial, or worse, they've installed it because they thought they were doing Trailhead, and they've now put a managed package, which was meant to be a Trailhead managed package, in production, and now someone's customized it.
Like when my domains weren't pretty much required that every org had a my domain, and someone ended up with like my pink pony as their my domain because they were doing a Trailhead challenge that told you to pick I think there's one that's pick a color and an animal and make that your my domain. So they end up putting that in their org. There's crazy stuff for us. Like one of my big things last year that I really wanted to do is to clean up our managed packages from the App Exchange. I got rid of 18 in one day. So with one day, we removed 18 managed packages that were installed in the past, probably shouldn't have been, weren't being used. So that was a big task, but we got it done.
So hang on. So you got 18 managed packages in one day.
18 managed packages and removed all of the interdependency uses of like, oh, this button's on this page layout. Oh, this is a list view that's over here on this Lightning page. Because obviously you've got stuff everywhere with managed packages. The data we didn't care about keeping, but the getting rid of actually just the package out of the org, it helped clean up a lot of just stuff that was things like I just kind of ignored. It's not on the page, it's whatever. But managed packages slow down your org. Triggers are still there running for any managed object, even if you don't use the fields.
And there's also another hidden cost, which is if you've got a bunch of extra fields that have been added to a page layout, no one actually understands what they're for, you've still got people with time looking at them going, should I fill it out or not? you multiply that by 100, 1,000, 10,000 users who are all looking at those pages and not understanding what to do with those fields, if we can strip those off. So there must be a lot of people listening to this going, hang on, I'd love to get rid of those managed packages. So can you talk me through how you think about getting rid of technical debt?
Yeah, so for the managed package example I think I did that in about, I think it was June last year. Really what we first did is we went through the list of managed packs and we were like, okay, well, this is not being used. This is not being used. And we started looking at the usage of them, and ones we knew that were the skeletons in the closet, we just never go to the package manager and set up and look at. So started going through and I was like, okay, well, these are all the ones that we want to get rid of. And we did this in a sandbox. The first thing we tried was, okay, well, let's uninstall and see what happens. There's a couple of them that were just simple, which is good. They were very self-contained little things. Then the other ones were all over the place of permission set assignments. So it's identify the problem, then it's figure out how do you remediate it and what's the path forward, and then it's take action. But the biggest thing that I would stress is doing it in a sandbox, even though it's doing it twice, doing a sandbox and then production, because we broke things along the way that if it was in production, users would not have been happy campers if we were just doing that in production.
So how did you work out where all those dependencies were?
So the first step was, like I said, just try and uninstall. Kind of throw something at the wall, see what happens. Because there's a couple of them that it worked. Wasn't many, because permission set assignments start causing issues. So the second step was that we actually did use, and while I don't want to sound like I was shameless plug kind of thing, but we did use Elements Cloud, which was beyond helpful. 18 managed packages. I think 3 of them had no issue. The other 15 had issues of stuff all over the place. So we were able to use Elements Cloud to start to look at where is stuff used. Some of it was in flows that we had to go update. So we had to get the fields out of flows. Some was on reports that we had to go and deal with. There's all over. And then some of it was you had to go check with user and be like, hey, is this field, are you actually using this? And the answer was no, but we had to check because it was on a report that had their name on it. So really it was first just figuring out where's stuff, everything used, and going package by package.
So if we just take that one example, there could be a cost if those managed packages were subscribed to and people weren't using them. There's certainly a cost in certain terms of the user time that they're taking. And then finally, you said that actually there's a cost associated with just how much slower the org will run, because you've got triggers, you've got just a ton of stuff that's in the org. So just that simple, almost self-contained, quite low risk area of reducing technical debt. So that's great. So what's on the roadmap next? And what sort of thing, how would you now think about the next thing of technical debt you're trying to reduce?
Right now, my biggest thing, and I've got a 90-day plan to take care of it, is profiles. Death to profiles. So we've got profiles. Every org has profiles. We've done some new stuff. So since last year, I committed to not using permissions on profiles since January of last year. So we did a rollout. We've got 1,200 custom objects in our org between managed packages and our own. So it's a massive amount of stuff. But what we've been able to do is we did a big project, went live January of last year, and we did everything permission set. And then I just did a project launch for TaskRay in our org. We went live January 1st of this year, and that was completely permission set based. But what I'm working on right now over this next 90-day window is we're creating permission sets that are these chunks of like objects that make sense. So like account, contact, and asset are all one group of them. We're making these permission sets, adding them to permission set groups and assigning them to users, leaving their profile intact. And then I'm pulling away stuff off of users' profile. So I'll pull away the accounts and contacts and assets, and then I'll see what happens. Because honestly, some of the stuff, it's really hard to regression test. You can test in Sandbox all you want, but you're never going to get a user to actually do what they're doing, even with automated testing, to do the random little things. So kind of give extra access so it's layered, and then pull the extra access off of it over time. That's kind of the strategy, so that we can see what breaks. Nothing breaks, great. And then we can go, and really having a good DevOps process allows you to be agile. So if we find out, we need to add this field level security because a user's like, I can't see this field or this report doesn't work, I can move something from our development sandbox into integration, into UAT, and into production in literally 20 minutes if I needed to go and push something. So it's not do a hot fix in production. I can wait 20 minutes and move it all the way from between three sandboxes and then into production in less than 20 minutes. If you have a process in place that allows you to do that, it makes this super easy to do.
So let me try and summarize what I've heard then. So first of all, you clearly have a strategy. You know what you're going after. You're starting to build what are almost, I know they're longer than sprints, but a 3-month and 90-day, this is what we're trying to achieve. You then prioritize the areas you want to look at. And then you've made sure that you have a good development process so that you can move things from your development environment through to production relatively quickly and cleanly. So it feels
Exactly.
like you shouldn't just launch into trying reducing technical debt. You actually need to have some foundations in place to be able to make it, to actually drive this through effectively.
It's incredibly important. If you don't have a plan in place, you're just going to create more technical debt. So if I just ran off and did it and I didn't have a plan of how do I want to group permission sets to actually have maximum reusability, if I didn't go and look at the different leaders like Cheryl Feldman and understand what she's recommending as the PM for the user authorization and understand what is the best way going forward that's going to match what Salesforce is doing. Because if you went back 3 years ago, people would say profiles are okay. Like, well, maybe not okay, but profiles were not frowned upon 3 years ago. But today, if someone says, oh, well, I'm just using profiles for all permissions, it's like, that's not a good idea. That's going to bite you. So understanding from the leaders in the ecosystem what's important, get that plan of attack, and then actually go do it responsibly and don't try and go super fast. Speed is not going to help you by trying to go do every object at once. Users aren't going to be happy. So have a plan so that you can have minimal user impact while still achieving what you need to have a long-term, stable, and healthy org.
So a different question here. Would you put time into every project for reducing technical debt as you go along, or are you separating the technical debt projects out?
I'd say it's a mix. So I don't right now have the internal resources for us to just go full steam ahead technical debt as our only thing to reduce, because I've got a backlog that I could spend a year on just new stuff. So I do some stuff that's like just clear technical debt reducing stuff, and that's an important thing to do. Like one of the examples of that is that we do our package upgrades, managed packages. People never update managed packages in production orgs. Well, not even production sandbox, but people just leave them and they set and forget. That creates technical debt. When an ISV has released a new version of a package and you don't install it for 2 years, that is actually technical debt in your org because you're neglecting to update them. So every month we go and we look at what it has new versions that we should be installing. So during that is one time that we kind of look to clean up technical debt on a more scheduled basis. But we also, throughout projects, if we're on a page layouts and we're realizing this field is never used because we look at the usage of it, it's like, okay, well, we can probably remove that off the page layout. So we check with users, they're happy with it. And now we've actually removed technical debt off of the page layouts. And then in the future, we can look at, do we want to just get rid of this custom field as a whole?
Excellent. So if you had one piece of advice for people who are listening, what would that be?
I mean, I could give a lot of really good ones. One would be don't use multi-select pick lists. The other would be before you go and create any metadata in a sandbox into production, I'm assuming you're never going to do it in production because that's just bad. That's a bad admin move. But I would say ask yourself, can you trust what's in this field 1 year from now? If a sales user wants something created, the first question should be, will you trust this in 1 year? Because there's a high likelihood that you know that they're not going to trust the data in this in every single field in a year. And if they can't trust it, you shouldn't be adding it. So really, it's about having a good BA process. A lot of orgs don't have a full-time business analyst, but the admin and an architect in an org have to play that role if you don't have one.
Okay, so that brings us back to, again, something that you and I and Vanessa Grant have talked about a lot, which is the importance of business analysis. So I think you did a great session at Dreamforce about saying no. So actually being able to say no to business users in the right way, we're going, no, I'm not going to go and build this because actually it's not the right thing to build. And that actually stops the technical debt getting into the org in the first place.
I think that's the biggest thing. And I think actually if summing it into one thing would be just say no, which was the name of the session, Admins Anonymous, just say no. Because you got to stop the bleed. You can go back and try and patch the holes and where you've got all the bleeding in the org, but don't keep stabbing the actual org and creating more problems to fix. You can stop the bleeds, stop creating technical debt, and then you can slowly work down what you actually have. But if you keep pouring more on, you'll never be able to catch up.
That, I think, is a fantastic way of finishing this. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of Experts React. We'll be recording these every week. We'll be picking a particular topic and inviting an expert to come in and discuss that particular topic. If you've got topics that you want us to discuss, post them down there in the comments or send an email to me, ian@elements.cloud. And make sure you don't miss out. So subscribe. Hit the button up there, or is it the button down there? Whatever. Don't leave, subscribe. See you later. See you for the next episode.